I wanted to talk about this for a little bit because recently we've been looking at the January 6th committee and looking at the results of what happened on January 6th. And we've been trying to review the amount of damage that was done. The 140 officers injured, many of whom have not returned to service. The 2 officers who had ended their own life. Brian Sicknick, of course. The bombs that were planted, the media that was assaulted, the damage to the Capitol building, the loss of a feeling of security. This is an update for that story. As we have seen Tucker Carlson and many of the people on Fox, and even some people in our own online political space try to downplay the effects and mock those officers who testified at the committee. A 3rd officer who served that day has died by suicide. 2 officers had already ended their own lives. This is the 3rd officer to end their own life who served during the Capitol riots and responded to what was going on. This is tragic, and it's really depressing to see so much that, like, there's so many people still trying to downplay what happened, not looking at the 140 injured, not looking at the bombs were planted, not looking at the 2 people who killed themselves, now 3 people that killed themselves, not looking at the people that were trampled to death that way, not looking at Brian Sicknick, not looking at the damage done to the local media who was covering the event, not looking at the damage and the loss of security, and how close people got to our legislators as people charged into the Capitol screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," not looking at the weapons that were found before and after, the AR-15s, the thousands of rounds of ammunition. None of that. Just want to ignore all of it and just keep on moving. No reflection whatsoever. Zero. And another person has lost their life. First, I want to say that every person who served on January 6th should be getting the necessary mental health care right now that they need to keep surviving and deal with the trauma they experienced there, where people were getting crushed, trampled, pulled out into the crowd, and beaten with flags. Many of them had to call home afterwards and tell their kids, hey guys, I'm not dead. It was a terribly traumatic experience. You just listen to the black officer who described how he got racially abused while there. I was there, and I saw a lot of stuff that I could see as terribly traumatic for those who experienced it firsthand. Officers getting attacked and nonsense like that. I saw the press just trying to cover the event. One of them calls what was happening a riot. People get angry at them for calling it a riot, and so they respond by assaulting the press, smashing their cameras, and attacking the press pool. Let's read the story. A D.C. police officer responded to the U.S. Capitol insurrection has died by suicide, according to the Metropolitan Police Department. Officer Gunther Hashida, assigned to the emergency response team within the Special Operations Division, was found deceased in his residence on Thursday, July 29th. Department spokesperson Kirsten Metzer told CNN in a statement. Hashida told the Metropolitan Police Department in 2003, joined the Metropolitan Police Department in 2003 and responded to the Capitol on January 6. We are grieving as a department, and our thoughts and prayers are with Officer Hashida's friends and family. This is the 3rd known suicide of an officer who responded to the Capitol during the attack, and is the 2nd known by suicide by a D.C. officer specifically. Metropolitan Police Officer Jeffrey Smith, a 12-year veteran of the force, and U.S. Police Officer Howard Limbengood, a 16-year Capitol Police veteran, also responded to the insurrection and later died by suicide. A recent Senate report into the security failures of the days lists both Smith and Limbengood among those who ultimately lost their lives following the attack. So this is included by casualties from the attack, because the Senate report included them as those who ultimately lost their lives. I appreciate the raid. I'm sorry if I'm like talking about what happened. So a few months ago, about in early May, as many of you know, I attempted to end my own life. And I know a lot of people try to end their own lives, and it's like a scream for help. That wasn't that for me. It was a legitimate attempt to end my own life. And seeing all these people who didn't get the help that I got afterwards, the support, who also chose to take that path, is heartbreaking. Definitely, since sadly they were successful and I wasn't. And to think that these three people who put everything on the line, their lives and their security, when they had family waiting at home, to defend the United States Constitution against a mob of insurrectionist traitors who pre-planned, and that is confirmed, pre-planned their movements onto Capitol grounds as they tried to stop the certification of the election and overturn our democracy. And to see these people treated so terribly by all these commentators, by Tucker Carlson, who laughed at their trauma, laughed at these veterans and officers who defended the United States Constitution.
I've been left with the psychological trauma and the emotional anxiety of having survived such a horrific event.
Or Laura Ingraham, who gave many of the officers fake little trophies, calling them drama queens.
God save us from these third-rate theatrics. Now, the award for best use of an exaggeration in a supporting role. The winner's Aquilino Gonell, who thinks the pen is literally mightier than the sword.
You have all these items and things that...
By the way, not only is this guy an officer, but he also served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Just want to make that clear. As they were mourning their brothers in arms who had hung themselves and blown their brains out due to what they saw that day, and to how the country treated them afterwards. Because a decent chunk of the country treated them like shit. Hell, they saw how some of the country treated them that day when they were getting beaten by American flags and bats. Some people wanted to go further, as firearms were found off grounds and bombs were found outside the DNC and RNC. People intended to maim and kill that day. Sadly, some did. Now, it could have been much worse, and due to the actions of officers like this man, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But to just see how terribly they're treated by so many commentators, calling them liars and frauds, and saying they're oath breakers. If you look at the footage at the Capitol, not only are they racially abused, physically abused, and all this other stuff, but they're saying that they're the traitors. They're oath breakers, that they're breaking their vow when they're putting their lives on the line to protect the democracy that they were born or came to. People's had their fucking eyes gouged out that day, man. Lost fingers, and sadly, some lost it all. And when we find out more and more information as how, like, Representative Mo Brooks, one of the speakers that day, who told people to fight like hell and take names, was wearing body armor and knew beforehand that it could get violent. As we find out more information and more people lose their lives due to what happened that day, this just further shows how important it is to get a clear set of facts of what happened and how much I wish we could have had that bipartisan commission. And now we have to do this in this partisan way of having the select committee. Now, I want the select committee to happen, and we need to be aggressive in getting that information. But by God, man, I wish for just a tiny second we could have had that just ounce of mythical thing we like to call bipartisanship. We could have actually sat down and examined the situation. Because, dude, when you're in a place where you want to kill yourself and you actually attempt it, it is the darkest place in the world. And people who protected our democracy's heroes should not at all feel that way. They should not be in a point of depression or sadness. They should be proud of what they accomplished in defending the United States Capitol. This is a line in the sand for me, by the way. This really is a line in the sand for me. There's a reason why I don't associate with people like Suspect Sushi anymore. Because it is because of the actions of people like Suspect Sushi, the Proud Boys, the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, Joe Biggs, Enrique Tarrio, and all those other insurrectionist fools that this man ended his own life. And his family is going to have one less person at the dinner table come Thanksgiving. God rest his soul. Okay, I'm going to say quick. If people are doing whataboutisms in chat right now, that's just going to be like an easy ban for me. Like I'm talking about a man who ended his own life. And I don't give a fuck about whatever the fuck you're talking about. I literally don't care. I care zero. If you want to talk about that, sure. You can talk about that other times, or you can bring that up. But we're talking about this man, okay? We're talking about this man. This is who we're talking about right now. This man's dead. And he didn't have to be.